Hey everyone, this is InDesign Part 5, and in this video we're going to be looking at images, sizes, and relinking. So by the end of this video, you'll know how to place images and size them, understand some more advanced concepts and uses for the frame tool, and then how to use the relink window to effectively place images that are similar or the same size. So let's get started. Alright, so we're back with the A Day in the Woods project here. And what I would recommend to everyone is that you have your hand graphics that you're going to use scanned and in your computer digitally, saved in a folder and organized. Or if you have a computer graphic that's already in your computer, saved as a JPEG or a PDF, everything just saved in a folder. So I'll show you an example here. For my A Day in the Woods project, I've got everything saved and organized into 3 areas, so analysis, illustratives, and inventory. You can see that if I click on my analysis, I have my 4 pictures that I'm going to use for my analysis in here, all my illustratives in my illustratives folder, and then all my inventory and context in my inventory folder. So just make sure that you have all your photos you need organized in your folder hierarchy on your computer. So since we have everything saved and ready to go, I'm going to start drawing some frames to try and visualize where I want everything to go. To start doing that, I'm going to select our frame tool, and I'm going to want to start with our inventory and context. So what I'm going to do is I want this to have a long context map at the top here, all shaped according to our grid structure. So I'm going to draw a single frame there, and you can see that a frame is this box tool, this box shape with the X through it. And then I want 4 inventory frames to go under that. So I'm going to start with our grid. And instead of drawing 4 individual frames, you can actually draw 4 frames at once. So if you look at the bottom left of the screen and watch my keyboard inputs, if I press the up key, it will actually add another column of frames here. And if I press the right key, it will add a extra row of frames. And if I keep pressing that, it will just keep going on and on. And to have less, you'll just hit the left key and the down arrow, which will take away them. So I'm going to want a 2 by 2 frame starting from my top left of that grid to the bottom right of my margin. And that will create 4 equal frames for us. Now that we have that ready, I'm going to show you guys how to place images within these frames. So what you're going to want to do is go into your folder that you have saved. And then once you have that open, you can simply drag and drop pictures into these frames. So I'm going to put our Arboretum context into this first one. And you can see that it's zoomed in like really, really far. And then there's a shortcut we can use to make this image come down. The shortcut I like to use is I'll select my box, and then if you watch the keyboard shortcut down in the bottom left for my keyboard inputs, it's Control, Alt, Shift, E. And if you do that all at once, it's a pretty long shortcut. Just Control, Alt, Shift, E. It will resize that picture to be best formatted and sized within your frame. Now that we've got it formatted as best it can within the frame, I'm actually going to increase the size because I want the picture to take up the entire frame. So if you want to make the picture inside your frame bigger, you can double click inside your frame, and you'll notice that an orange scale box will come up around your picture. And you can simply just start scaling it up. And if you want to scale it with the proper proportions, you have to hold in Shift. You can see that when I don't hold in Shift, it will scale it on the improper portions. So I'll undo that and then scale it all the way up, holding Shift, and it will keep its proportions. And then you can see that the image actually goes beyond the frame border, but when it does go beyond the frame border, the frame will cut that image off, and that's what I want. So I'm going to actually make this a little bit bigger. There we go. That's about how I want it. And then you can also move around the image or any other box or anything on the screen with very precise movements with the arrow keys. Now, as you might notice, this picture actually looks kind of fuzzy. This is something that InDesign does on its own. So if you have a lot of high resolution pictures in here, it might actually be a little hard for your computer to actually run it. But don't worry, if it is a high resolution picture and it looks kind of blurry, it's on purpose to keep your hardware from working too hard. But if you want to see what it'll actually look like, you can go up to View, Display Performance, and High Quality Display. And then you'll be able to see all your pictures at the resolution that it's set as. All right, so let's move on to our inventory photos. So I'm going to open up that folder again, and I'm going to throw in our inventory photos, just one by one. And then I'm going to go through them and do the shortcut that I showed you earlier. So Control Alt Shift E. I'm going to do it for all of them. And then I'm going to resize them by double clicking in the box and then making their scales bigger using the scale box while holding Shift. So going through each one of these photos and scaling them all individually is actually not very time efficient, and there's an easier way to do this, and that's with image relinking. So what I'm going to do is actually redraw those 4 frames. I'm going to select our frame tool and then add another row. And then I'm going to add just one inventory. I'm going to scale it with the Control Alt Shift E command. And then I'm going to double click and scale it and move it to the exact position that I want it to be. All right, that looks good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this frame by holding Alt. And then I'm going to just kind of place it around and then delete the empty frame that I'm placing it on. Now I have 4 inventories of the exact same category, but what I'm going to do is replace some of these pictures with other inventory categories, and it will actually relink them at the exact same size and location as the first one. And I'll show you why this is important. So what you can do is I'm going to just select this frame right here, and then I'm going to go to Links. And you can see, since I have this frame selected, it's actually highlighting which picture this is. So I'm going to right click on the picture and hit relink. After that, I'm going to navigate to my folder, go to the inventory, and then I'm going to select the next inventory that I'm going to want to show, which is the elevation map. And what you'll notice is that this elevation map comes in exactly the same size and exactly the same location as this one. That's important because if you were to put in your slopes and then your elevations and then your aspect and then whatever else, you might adjust them to the same size that looks kind of the same, but it's not 100% in the exact same size and the exact same shape. By doing it this way, you can ensure that each inventory map are exactly the same size and shape. This will also save you time, so you're not trying to eyeball the size and shape, which actually can take a lot of time if you don't know how to use this process. So I'm just going to continue doing that. So I'm going to hit the next frame. You can see that it's highlighting it here. I'm going to right click and hit relink. Then I'm going to choose the next map, hydrology map. All right, looks good. Choose the next one. You can see that it's highlighting it again, relink, and then the soils map. All right, there we go. All right, so let's continue placing some images here. The next thing on our list is the analysis images. So I'm going to go back to our folder, navigate back to the main page, and then go to analysis. So these are the next pictures that I'm going to want to show. I'm actually going to start to break up the grid a little bit here. So you can see that I have 3 pictures that are talking about suitabilities, and then I have a composite map. I want this composite map to actually take up more space than these 3 suitability maps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some temporary guides based off of this guide right here. And then I want this to be spaced out a 1/4 inch from this. So I'm going to hold shift, and that's a 1/4 inch spacing right there. We're going to zoom out, and then I'm going to draw a large frame from this corner to the corner that meets the guide in the margin. That's where my composite is going to go. And then I'm going to draw a frame based on the remaining squares here. Like that. So now I'm going to start adding those images. So I'm going to go back to our analysis folder. I'm going to add the composite map. I'm going to get inside the box or the frame and scale it up. And then move it with the arrow keys for precise movement. Looks about right. And then I'm going to do the same thing that we did before with the inventory maps. So I'm going to choose the first suitability map here. I'm going to resize it with our long command, and then double click in it and resize it again to fit the boundaries or the frame that I've created, and then copy it. And then select the frame, or delete out the frame that is empty. And then again, go through our links. And start to relink it. There we go. And then typically in your design portfolio, you probably want to go back and make sure everything has legends, north arrow scales, everything has a caption at the bottom of your portfolio. But in this sake, as an example, I'll let that slide. But in your portfolio, that's probably something that you really want to do. And then finally is our illustratives. So for my plan, I actually want to do a full bleed plan that goes all the way from the corner of the page to the other corner. So we have our file browser open. I'm going to select our plan view here and then copy and paste it into our frame, and then do the long command, and it actually forms out pretty well to this frame. Only have to adjust it a little bit. Make sure you hold shift so that it formats with the right scale. And then the next thing I'm going to do is add my renderings and section. So what I'm going to do is add a guide to the middle of this page, and then select my frames. Do 2 frames here, and then add a long frame for my section at the bottom. And then go back into my files. I'm going to add my renderings and then my section, and then go through and scale them. Adding pictures to a portfolio is actually quite simple. Once you have your frames and everything formatted in the right way you want it, adding the pictures themselves is actually not too time consuming. All right, that's just about right. So, and there we have it. Pretty simple and basic spread here. We've went through and added text, guides, master pages, and images into the spread, and that's pretty much all you need to start your beginner's level portfolio. All right, so with that wraps up InDesign Part 5, where we talked about images, sizes, and relinking. So as far as I know, this should be everything you need to start your beginner's portfolio. So for InDesign, that's practically it for me, and I'll see you guys in class. Thanks.